Well, welcome everyone. Happy September, or maybe not so. It's been a rough one already starting up, but we'll definitely talk about it today. It's September 13th, and wherever you are, I hope you are feeling the seasonal changes. Even in Colorado, we're starting to see and feel the morning breeze and the evening breeze are changing, and crickets, as are they called, the crickets? They're coming out. Birds are changing. We live near like the water also. So this pond, we get like a seasonal geese that come and land on there. And that's been just lovely to watch too. So hopefully you're paying attention to these little seasonal changes, and what that means that if the nature is changing, you must change inside you in terms of maybe how much sleep you're getting, what are you eating. You can't just be eating the same thing that you were doing in the heat of the summer, or if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you can't be eating just the same thing you were eating in the winter season either, okay? So I think it's probably worth repeating this, even though we're still going through some, heating times, like we had 95 degrees or something Fahrenheit over the weekend. So it's pretty warm. But what you want to do is to begin to look to seasonal foods. Okay. And I have to say, I have been enjoying, and Chris and I have been enjoying our neighbors' peach trees, and we're going to go harvest some peaches this afternoon again. We're not going crazy because we know they can impact your glycemic index and, can kind of feed the microbial, maybe more fungus and yeast if you eat too much fruits. But we have been enjoying pears, peaches, grapes. Those are all like low, their neighbor houses trees that are producing them. So we've been really enjoying that. But this is the time that you want to begin to slowly maybe move away from too much drying foods. So drying foods would be too much like raw salads. Okay. It's okay to eat raw foods because this is the season for it still, because we're still straddling from summer into the fall. But make sure your foods are not all raw, but there's some cooked veggies starting to come back in. If you always have digestive issues, you do want to lean more towards cooked, right? And then if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, this is the time that you begin to say, okay, maybe I'll cut a little bit back on the saturated fats and maybe slowly introduce cooked roots, vegetables, or maybe some bitter herbs stuff. So bitter digestive maybe drops that you can put in your water. If you can get some roots that are, I don't know, dandelion roots are quite there for you guys either, but if you could find them, that'll be great. Starting to look for bitter herby vegetables. Okay. So something like arugula, those will be coming out earlier than later on in the season. So begin to change, support your liver if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. Okay. And you want to begin to support a liver for the Northern Hemisphere too, but maybe more towards lungs, okay, and supporting the lung health itself. So make sure you're not getting too dried out. And if you know the Ayurvedic doshas, then, if you got a lot more vata in you, like me, so I have a vata pitta in me, they're pretty strong in both of me. So what that means is I'm very fiery, feisty. I got a lot of energy. I can get things done. I can push myself, but maybe, I need to just say, okay, I could use 2 hours of not reading more stuff, not more answering emails, but just 2 hours that I can maybe sit back and read a book or something that's nothing to do with my learning to help others and study. Okay. So just pull back a little bit on the fiery energy and then begin to nourish your lungs. Lungs love good fatty acids. So this is the time in Japan where we begin to eat a little bit more omega-3 rich foods. That could come from a rich source would be for me growing up was omega-3s were, obviously fish. So I would eat a lot of things like mackerel and sardines, anchovies, things like that are smaller fish. I do not eat large fish anymore because of my mercury exposures, but look for omega-3s Balance between omega-6 and omega-3s are going to be really important. So if you've done a lot of eating out, you've done a lot of eating things that are based on seed oil during the summer, this is the time, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, to shift away from that and start introducing good balance of omega-3s. So you're going to get that from egg yolks. You could get that from grass-fed beef. You can get that from pretty, good, healthy fall to early fall to mid-fall fish that are blue in tinted color, and they're smaller, the ones that I just mentioned. Because most, I would say, people in the United States and most people in Canada, but also a lot of Europeans as well, tend to eat way too much omega-6s. Omega-6s can be super inflammatory when you overeat that. So what they are, basically, if you eat out at the restaurant, you're going to be exposed to omega-6. Okay, just guaranteed. Canola oil, corn oil, soy oil, any processed oil, any seed oil base. So sunflower seed oil, safflower seed oil, even flaxseed, I would be careful, even though flaxseed has a lot more omega-3s, make sure that they are, I don't like to buy a large bottle or anything because they go rancid super fast. The ratio between omega-6 and omega-3 for most Americans, okay, in the United States are anywhere from 20 to 1 to, I just heard 40 to 1. Where your ratio should be is generally 1 to 1 or maybe 2 to 1. That's okay. But 20, 40 times more omega-6s than omega-3s will inflame your entire body. Okay. So pay attention to what fats you're cooking with. That's why, Chris and I really do not eat out. We cook practically everything we eat at home. So we know what fats we're eating, and that's going to be the key. The teacher that we studied together from, he said, sugar's bad. Yes, GMO's bad. There's so many things that we really need to be avoiding, but he really emphasized, he said, no one's talking about this, or like he said, basically people are not talking about this enough. It's the danger of omega-6 fats. Okay. And they come in the liquid form, and they usually come in the plastics, and they are in the grocery stores with the soft plastic, and the light is shining on that all day long. And by the time you get to it, it's guaranteed rancid. And the restaurant industry is not changing enough to change the fats that they cook with. If you could find a local restaurant that will guarantee that they cooked your food with either coconut oil, maybe avocado oil, ghee, lard, you name it, animal fats, then I would say go for it. Okay. But if they say, no, we cook it with a vegetable oil, just turn around. Don't even eat that food. Okay. So that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. I don't know where that came from. I didn't even plan on talking about that, right, Chris? Do you want to say something?
Well, there's a lot to cover there. I think that we could talk a lot more about this topic, but one of the things to keep in mind, particularly as we get into the topics that Masami laid out for this month of September that we're going to focus on, tying that last comment about fats back into this conversation, like Masami said, or was getting to, is that fats that you can't digest, fats that are already oxidized, meaning they're already rancid and bad. So most food that you get from restaurants is cooked in those kinds of oils. That is the number one inflammatory substance that you can introduce into your body that's natural. So it's one of the worst things that you can either eat, or if you're not digesting your fats, it's going to do the same thing, regardless of how good they are. So just in the vein of what, not only do we do I'm looking at some of the questions that Masami sent out in the email about what we do to armor ourselves, but we also do a lot of things to sabotage and undermine ourselves. And that's one of them, is that we don't really pay attention to what's going into our food. And that's something that in the time that we live in right now, which I think we're going to be talking about more this month, is the time we live in right now. That's going to be more important than ever to naturally take care of things like inflammation in your body in ways that your system is designed to do. So I'll stop there for a moment.
Yeah, I wanted to tie it back to, this month's topic. It's about armor, and how we cocoon ourselves and how we put walls around ourselves. And sometimes we want to be open. We want to share. We want to be open to all possibilities, but we can't help it because our internal body is so inflamed that you feel like you have to put something over yourself to protect yourself. So you always want to tap into, okay, what is it inside me that is inflamed? Can I do something about it? And I think number one thing that will make the most profound change in your life is to change the fats that you eat. And it's not enough people are talking about this because there's been so much emphasis on sugar and don't eat this. I mean, sugar is inflammatory. I get that. But fats are far worse if you eat the ones that I just mentioned. And as many of you are really educated in this to know that most of the fats that I listed, like canola oil, corn oil, soy oil, cottonseed oil, okay, what do they have all in common? They're GMO-based fats, right? So there's a whole lot that you want to start thinking about. But I think our bodies begin to tighten and we feel like we're inside this shell all the time and we can't break free of it. Part of it is because we're fighting the inflammatory situations inside us. And, I wanted to bring it back to the kind of an external thing. And I'm like, genuinely want to know how you guys are doing. So please feel free to put this on the chat. How are you guys doing? How are you doing? Honestly, how are you doing in your heart level, on your mental level, on your digestive gut level, in your hara level, in your extremities? How are you really doing? Are you sleeping? Do you have enough energy? Because I'm bringing this up because it's so intense right now. Yes, there's energetic frequencies that are intense. We're going into the time of, I wrote down some things, but it's like there's so much fear that it's getting stirred up. Even though we talked about this a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago about the word fear, it's showing us the way, showing us to pause and say, should I be taking that direction? Or should I pause and kind of reconsider this? Or should I tune back into myself? That's what fear is when you feel that fear and anxiety inside. But I think there's been we're all experiencing like power grabbing, a lot of shaming going on, ridiculing people, righteousness, judgment, divisions. We're not trusting one another and we're not listening. I mean, I'm working with so many of my clients that I'm just like, there are times I'm just like, I had to say to this one person today, it's like, I'm not trying to scold you. Okay. I've been working with her for a long time. I said, I know you are capable. I said, you are so intuitive. You're tapped in. You can channel things. You know how connected you are to the cosmic flow and the cosmic energy, the universe around you. How come you're not connecting to that? That is in you. Why are we separating our physiology from our knowing that we have for the world around us? Why are we separate? Why aren't we part of this whole system? When it comes to our own health and our own symptoms, we get so nervous and fearful so immediately, so quickly. Were we like this as children? I wasn't raised that way. If I had fever or if I didn't feel well, maybe sore throat, I didn't just jump into, taking something or being extremely nervous about it. No, I sat with it. My mom would say, oh, just let it be for a couple of days and see what happens. I mean, my mom would be like, well, 3 days of fever is no big deal. Once it gets to about the fourth day, yeah, maybe we'll think about it. We'll talk about it. Maybe stick you in an ice bath or something. But generally, I navigated through that. So there's just so much dust been created. It's like we're trying to look through a muddy glass, and the muddy glass that's getting stirred up. And one way to let this settle so that you can see clearly is to let that glass sit on the table. Let you sit yourself down, okay? And then let the muddy water settle to the bottom of the glass so you can begin to see clearly into you. Please start to trust yourself. If you trust your guides and your support system and your guardians that are always with you, which they are, every single of us come into this world with at least one guardian partner. In Japanese, we just call it the guardian partner, okay, guardian soul or the spirit. It's everyone has at least one. You've got to talk to that and trust yourself a little bit more, because I just feel like there's been so much manipulation going on. Like I said, shamings out there, forceful energies, forceful messaging, or even like trying to please somebody in order to manipulate things in. Seduction, I wrote some words. Another thing's like holding grudge, resentment, not forgiving. That came up for me really strongly over the weekend. Chris and I had I just lost it with Chris. And it was this old pattern that we struggled with in our marriage. And it's me not forgiving him, not really getting to the root of it. So the roots were still strong in me. So that came up. So then I realized, oh my gosh, I'm still deeply holding on to not forgiving him. Past mistakes that I'm like holding it on as if, this is the weapon I'm going to always use against the situation. It's like we're weaponizing some of these things with each other. Other things would be passive aggressive actions, blaming one another. And then also learned helplessness. Where's that coming from? I'm working with a lot of clients that's like, they're generally really open to knowing what their inner voice is, and they can really tune into it. They can journal it. They can communicate this with me. But when it comes to their health issues, they just sit back and go, I'm in this, learned helplessness. Okay. And, one person I had to just fire as a client because he said, I paid for you so that you should tell me yes or no. And you know what? That's not what I do in my private sessions. I teach you how to listen to you. Okay. I'm not some kind of a coin machine. You put a quarter in it and then you push the lever and then I'm supposed to spit out yes or no. That's not how I operate. So, there's just kind of a lot of old ego that is kicking and screaming and creating a dust here. And that old ego is where we tend to have created the armor, the cocooning of ourselves, walled city. We live inside it. And what we see often in our work with the hair tissue mineral analysis is that we see a huge amount of calcifications in people's body. So the calcium shows up on the hair tissue mineral analysis. And that means that person is basically blocking things. They live inside this wall for whatever reason, from a childhood, trying to protect yourself, trying not to show that you're so intuitive and you're an empath and you channel things. So you protected yourself. It might have come from a protective place. It might have saved you. It might have helped you to survive. But we're coming into the time in our history, in our human, beautiful history, that if any of you are following the transition from 3D to 5D, and if you want to get to the 5D level of ascension and ascending to that level of higher frequencies, you've got to start with your own armor. You got to start with your own inner inflammation. You got to start with your own inner voice that you have been suppressing and not listening. So, and I'm going to smile here because, I'm not always this serious. So we need to laugh here too. So I will hand it back to Chris for a moment, and I'm sure there are things coming up.
I'm going to start with what my dad's strategy was when we were kids. If we said we were sick, it was pretty ingenious actually, because usually if I said I was sick, it was to either stay home from school or church. And so what he did is he would say, well, you have to suck on a zinc. That was the first test, because if you've ever sucked on a zinc tablet, it is awful. And so as kids, I'd be like, well, maybe I'm feeling okay. I guess I can go to school today. So that was the first test. But then the other thing was, it actually worked really well. If you were not feeling well, or you were a little bit on the verge of catching something, that zinc was actually very effective. But it was a good screening test all the same. I just wanted to share that. So if you need sometimes we need to give ourselves that little extra test to figure out if we're just trying to make an excuse to get out of something or not. And that's something that I can relate to because, part of, without getting into all the detail of it, I've spoken somewhat in the past of my history with traumatic brain injury and how much that has shaped my life. And I'll say more about that. There's plenty more to say. But in terms of what we're talking about here, for me, the challenge has been recognizing how my system has armored itself and has created these patterns, which are now decades long. This injury happened 27 years ago for me. And yet I still continue to be affected by it. And some of the effects have been really detrimental. And those are some of the pieces that Masami is referring to that have happened where, my behavior, the actions or inactions that I've taken have resulted in some real hurt. And that's something that, there's no other way than to just name it for that. And yet I've got to take a close look, because really right now, what's going on is our world is doing something, and we don't know what it's doing, except that it's pushing us, it's prodding us, it's testing us. It's saying, do you really want this? Do you really want to go there? Is this really important to you? And we have to be able to stand ready and to answer those questions. It's very difficult if we haven't practiced getting in touch with what matters to us to even know how to begin answering some of those questions. I can tell you that's something that I continue to struggle with, even when I think I know what the answer is. And so I just, one more aside, I want to mention some things a little bit later on. I'll come back to this about what I see as being, in effect, the archetype of this time right now. Because I was sitting with Masami earlier today, and we were just talking about how to look at what's going on. Because it seems like no matter where you're standing and looking from, anybody who doesn't see from the same perspective just seems crazy right now. And it doesn't even matter what your view is. It's just that wherever you're looking from, whoever is not there with you just seems like they're unhinged. And anyone who's looking can say the same thing. I really think that that is something that we need to look more closely at. And I'll have some comments on that a little bit later. But in the meantime, I'll hand it back to Masami.
Sorry, do you want to read a couple of comments that came in?
Oh yeah, let's take a couple right now. Let me go back up where you
Sharon,
started asking.
yeah.
Yeah. So to the question of how you're doing, starting up at the beginning, Andrew mentioned he's low energy today. We're seeing a lot of this, low energy and tired at the moment. Energy is coming back after a week of extreme exhaustion. 2 days ago, I came to understand that I need to soften my heart and open more to those that I might learn. I'm being guided to toss out many items, clothes, old food that no longer serves me. I feel a change is coming for me, but I don't know from what direction. All I know is that I'm being guided to prepare, even to the point of redoing my will and living trust. I think, Erlene, you are grasping the depth of what we're talking about here. It's not small stuff. There is a, I mean, we've overused this phrase so much that it almost means nothing anymore. This phrase paradigm shift. We're in a time where the way that we have assumed things work is no longer working. And I think that that is a very wise response. So let's see, a couple more. Sharon said she's feeling stressed over retirement finances and a lack of community. Must be careful of digestion, scratchy voice, etc. Jane says, I have very low energy and full of physical pain, wanting to eat carbs and have been eating a lot of fresh tomatoes, nightshades. My bad habit of overeating and being uncomfortable with other people, thus isolating, makes me wonder what is coming up. Yes, this is an invitation to look at where we are protecting our soft spots. Penny says, all around about a 3 or a 4 out of 10. Low energy, low mood, and difficulty finding optimism. Physical injuries from the past flaring up. Financial scarcity adding to the stress. Joanne says, very sluggish, old stuff, like herpes is coming up and hasn't reared its head for a while, hoping it is coming up to be released. And Lynn says, I love everything you're speaking on. I unfortunately have to leave early today. Sorry, Lynn, I didn't catch what you were saying there. Sorry you can't be with us. I'm going to see your comment here. Feeling much better. Feel like I'm shedding a lot of old armor, along with the calcium shell that my hair test showed is lessening. This is such an incredible time. So thankful for the both of you and MC squared. Okay, thank you. And Sally says, another low energy person. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I think this is where we have to tap into the deep mystery of who you are. I think we're seeking a little too much outside of us. Way too much outside of us. There's mystery in us. There are star systems in us. There are galaxies in us. And you are always equipped with at least one guardian soul or spirit. Okay, or whatever you want to call it. Some people, call it guardian angel, but I grew up in Asian society. So the word angel does not do much for me, to be honest with you. I didn't grow up with angels. I grew up with trees and stones and, little Jizos and bodhisattvas and, just all kinds of things. I mean, everything was a god. So for me, it's this guardian spirit soul that is always with me. And it's been speaking to me saying, why have you forsaken me? Basically, why have you forgotten about me? How come you don't have a conversation with me? It only wants to help you. That is its job. Only wants to help you. But you have to ask for that help and say, please help me out here. Guide me through. And, I'm not going to go into a huge amount. And I'm not going to go into almost nothing with this topic about COVID and the vaccine on this public forum, everyone. Okay. But I am actually creating a program that I'm taking myself through. I like to always do it on me first so that I'm clinically aware of what's going on in me and some of my private clients. And so I'm compiling some support for COVID. Also, everybody's welcome in my space. So unvaccinated or not, or vaccinated, everybody's welcome. Okay. So I'm creating a program or at least a workshop to support you in this process. So, I will be putting that out there probably, hopefully, I don't want to wait around too long for this information to support all of you. So I will put that out there as more of a workshop because I cannot do this in a public forum. Okay. So I just wanted to mention that. And, I think a couple of things that really is, hold on a sec, Chris, you want to, oh, that's right. Yeah, we need to come back to that homework from last Monday for sure. But a couple of things that I wanted to talk about is, tapping into the deep mystery of you is number one, like I said, but also please come back to your innate healing power. Okay. If we can trust in our own guiding systems, and we can trust in astrology for that matter, or we can trust in certain intuitive information, why are you not trusting in you? Okay. So there's an innate healing power in you. You just have to keep telling yourself that I believe in that. I believe in that. I believe in that. No matter what comes your way, you're going to tell yourself, I believe in that. Okay. That's what's going to feed that guardian energy that you carry with you. Okay. That is, like I said, there's always one with each of us. Okay. Some of you have multiple, but you are always guaranteed to come into this world with at least one. So have a conversation and feed that spirit as much as you can. And what gets fed by it is your innate knowing of how powerful you are inside. That's what feeds that power of the guardian power. Okay. I think things like visualizing and imagination, and this is where our homework from the last Monday that we did 2 weeks ago comes back. So I asked all of you, do you have a vision? Do you have the imagination for what you would like to see the world to become, to unfold to come out of the cocoon or chrysalis, right? What kind of a butterfly form are you looking for? That's imagination is what I would love for you to tap into. And if you're new to us and you didn't get that homework, we will be talking about this throughout this entire month. So if you had a vision of what it is that you would love to manifest into the world as well as within yourself, which is fine too, okay? Because what's inside is what's outside, right? If you want to health and vibrancy, that's what you will be wishing for the Mother Gaia also, all right? So it's no difference. So, if you want to put it on the chat, we will read it. Other things that will, these are some of the recommendations to begin to address your ego armor that you might have put on yourself since you're young and you have not had the parental support or, even other people in your life that they have not sorted out how to deal with their emotions. I mean, obviously, Chris and I are having our own processing with this, and luckily we could come out of it. But I went into a pretty dark place this over the weekend. It was a pretty dark place. But I knew I could come out of it. And I'm grateful that the Chris is working on his brain and his brain injury. And he's been seeing this, you can explain it a little bit more, but neuroplasticity work to support his brain function to start shifting. And he can tell you the progress so far, but I am seeing a difference in Chris. So other things. So I said, tap into your deep mystery of who you are. Innate healing power is in you. Keep repeating that to yourself. Have a vision, tap into your imagination. Don't get so stuck in being image just coming directly at you, but create your internal image outward. Also, dreams are very important. Hopefully some of you are dreaming a little bit more, or you're noticing the dream changes. And this is something I have talked about. But if you're one of those people that do not dream and you don't remember your dreams, you're most likely low on B6. Okay. So you need to look for P5P form of B6. Okay. And so that dreams are great. Dream writing, so journaling around dreams. I had a major download for 3 straight hours on, it was a Saturday night, I believe. Was it Saturday night? Yeah, Saturday night. And I wrote in the middle of the night. This was incredible download that I had. I will be sharing some of that with John Burgos' show. Tomorrow I'll be on and I'll be doing a workshop on COVID and lungs issues and the grief and the sadness and then so much more. But the downloads were amazing. So if you get that, get out of bed, start writing. Don't get stuck in, I need to try to sleep. I need to try. Get out of the bed, start writing. There's something that is trying to speak to you. Okay. So writing, and other things would be finding beauty, maybe put it on the chat. What are some of the beautiful things you're seeing? Like, I cannot tell you how beautiful these peaches are, everyone. Oh, I love that. What just happened there? Yes, the beautiful each other, Pauline, right? Yeah, see the beauty in each other. And if you don't have one another, if you live alone, then take a look at your hands. Look at how beautiful these hands, these digits, these can grasp things. They can hold things. They can stroke things. They can wash your face. They can hold beauty in you. I mean, this is beautiful. So find beauty all around you. That's going to truly shift your vibration. And finding things are pleasure. Okay. So Chris just laughs at me, and he can chime in here, but anytime I'm eating these gorgeous peaches, okay, I know I'm so stuck on peaches because I'm so excited. We're going to make peach crumbles after this. So it's all sitting on our kitchen counter, but I'm eating this and I'm making noise, and he's laughing because I'm always going, oh my God, this is so good. Like I'm just constantly making noise. And he just turns around and he's just like laughing at me. I'm like, join in. Come on, make some noise. Have you seen little kids eat like really good piece of fruit? Have you seen them make noise? Okay. I want you to make noise when you're eating these scrumptious, amazing, juicy beauty that came out of a flower, peach tree flower. Okay. It's a miracle. So find miracles everywhere. Make noise when you're eating anything that it's just delicious and just has a dance party inside your mouth. Okay. Anything else, Chris, you want to add to it? I have a couple more, but I think you may have some.
I can wait till you're finished.
Oh, another one is express your frustrations and anger. Okay. So this is a little preview to the workshop that I'll be teaching next month on lungs health, and we're going to be doing a retreat style, but the lungs and COVID and what they're tied to and connections, lungs and grief and all that. But the anger and frustrations are a part of your lung issues. Okay. So voicing things out, because I feel like so much of where we are politically and also socially is to just suppress our own voice, suppress. And so maybe some of you are noticing you're coughing up a lot, or like you'll be eating something and it goes to the wrong tube and you're coughing and go, why? I did that again, or you'll be choking on like I'm doing that a lot. Like I will have a glass of water and I'll be like, why did I swallow to the wrong pipe again? It's like, I'm not that old. I should know how to drink a glass of water, right? So it's this like coughing up is happening. So find ways that you can express your frustrations and anger. And I think you can feel that I am somewhat frustrated right now with what's going on in the world. And the energy feels that's so oppressive to people, especially sensitives, highly sensitive people and empaths, and the people that can channel and can see straight through, a lot of this murkiness. We are feeling oppressed right now. So find ways that you can express this. Find a friend that will listen to your anger and frustrations without judgment, without trying to manipulate things, without trying to shame you, without trying to solve the issues. We're not here to solve these expressions. We're just here to be heard. Okay. Just to be heard. This is one of the probably the biggest fights that we have, Chris and I have, is that I just want to be heard. And he goes into the male brain and says, I must fix this. There's something wrong with this. I must fix this. No, I don't want you fixing anything. I just want you to hear me. Okay. And I'm sorry, honey, I did turn you into a little bit of a punching bag over the weekend. So publicly, I apologize. I'm so sorry. I love you.
Oh, thank you. And I was just about to say, all hail the male brain, but I take it back. No, I think that we have to look at a few things really closely. Yeah, there's definitely a tendency to want to fix, and I catch myself jumping to doing that more than I care to admit. But I don't want to lose the thread of what we were talking about, which is imagination. And I want to revisit this. I think I might have mentioned a little bit about this last call, but it's this notion that imagination is what allows us to see new possibilities. So if you really explore this,
Say it again. Say it again. That was good.
Imagination is what allows us to see new possibilities. And so if we are not using our imaginal capacity, which is even more rich than just imagination, which is sort of the facility that we use to access the imaginal. But if we're not engaging with that, all we're doing is running over the same old ground, just again and again and again. We can't really change shape, even though life around us is changing and pushing us, and our bodies are changing and pushing us. And if we're not able to stay in congruence with those changes, we end up suffering so unnecessarily and so much more extremely than we would if we couldn't pay attention to what's going on. So we need imagination to see the possibilities, because if we can't even see the possibilities, we can't even look for them. We don't even know about them. So there's that interplay with change that requires this imagination. It requires questioning. And Masami was talking to me about this yesterday. I was doing a project in one of our bathrooms, and she was talking to me while I was trying to grout tiles. It was a little bit hard to concentrate, but the gist of it was that if you can't ask yourself what's a little bit off key with some of the beliefs that you have, like if you're just assuming that how the world was presented to you is just the way it is and should forever be, you're going to miss big patterns. You're going to miss big opportunities that they might be sitting right in front of you. They might be in your hand already. And you might just be going, no, this, don't need that. If you don't know what you're holding, if you can't broaden out your perspective, you're just going to miss a lot. And so at some point I may share, because one of the things that Masami mentioned was dreams. And that was another thing that came up for us. And we had a wide-ranging conversation running over the last few days. But one of them was the impact of dreams. And for me, there was a particularly powerful dream that I had several years ago. I don't know if I'm going to take the time to explain it right now, but it very much was about, it was a reflection of my unconscious self tapping into the power, that innate healing power, that internal reality, the truth of who I am, and also coming in contact with the energy of armoring and the energy of protection. And it came together in a very powerful set of images in this dream. But what I came to realize is that I had been denying the need for this protective factor. I'd been kind of cursing it and downplaying it and treating it badly and judging it. And really, it was just needing to be acknowledged and to be welcomed back in. And when I was able to do that, it transformed in the dream too. So my way of looking at things, you know, you listen to us long enough, you'll get a sense of this. I tend to get into that more the Jungian side of things and the archetypes. And I wanted to mention that. Is it okay if I touch on that really quick here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about what we're looking at right now, because so much of the time that we're in is this chaos and discord and division. And I dug back into Jung's work a little bit, because he talks about how much this chaos and disorder is so fundamental to our psyche. And yet we spend so much energy rushing to impose order on it. So I just want you to think about what's happening right now in the world, is this rush to impose order on the chaos and disorder that is playing out. And it's so interesting to me because he called the disorder, he had this term for it, which was the materia confusa. So this stuff of confusion, basically, is how you might think of it. And that's very much in the time that we're living in. But he says that process is what leads to transformation. And it's actually essential to transformation. Having the confusion, having the disorder, having that sense of chaos around us. And a lot of times it's because we tried so hard to impose order and to impose our will on the world, on situations, on relationships, on ourselves, that the disorder is just squeezing through all of the cracks and coming to the surface. And so there's so much of this that it's you know, the wholeness and the connectedness of everything is something that we miss. We forget that chaos and disorder are baked in with everything else. It's part of it. It's actually necessary to us. And so I just wanted to say a couple more comments about this, that what the task is, what we're being asked to do is something that we talk about a lot, which is listening deeply to what's being asked of us right now. How can we integrate whatever is seeming like it's just crazy and out of control in the world right now? How can we bring that back and hold it, not fix it? That's the tendency that has to be set aside. But how can we hold it? How can we stay in the discomfort of it long enough to learn what it's trying to tell us? And so I was just going to mention one more thing, which was the archetype, and then maybe we can hear some of the chat comments. But the archetype that I wanted to point to is the trickster. And what's interesting about the trickster is Western societies do not have a lot of trickster characters. We'll have fools, but they're a little bit different. They're somewhat connected to each other, but the trickster is a really interesting one. You find it in a lot of indigenous stories. You find it in a lot of South and East Asian stories, even in Western Asian stories, African stories. It's a very common archetype. But
so by animal is actually foxes in Japan. Foxes are tricksters.
Yeah, it could be an animal, it could be a spirit, it could be a person, it could be anything really. Mm-hmm. And so in, you know, like a lot of the North American indigenous stories, it's a coyote, for example. But the trickster's job, though, is to actually bring chaos and disorder and to flip things upside down and to show you that what you thought you knew, what you thought you had control over, actually isn't so. And so that's a really important thing. And to me, what was so telling is that we don't really have much of that archetype in Western stories. We're almost blind to it. So when we're in a situation where we need a trickster to help us understand why things are so confusing, why are things so topsy-turvy and upside down right now, we have a big blind spot. So we can borrow from this human cultural tradition that's bigger than Western culture and includes Western culture, and we can see that, you know, this one writer was saying that we had a great trick in the Bible, which was the serpent tricking Eve into eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And he's saying, well, it was a pretty good joke, but nobody was really laughing at it. You know, he really got her good. But it just, we lack a lot of tricksters that are also teachers. We've sort of left them at the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so what I'm saying is we can use that understanding of the trickster right now to help understand that we're in a time where things seem arbitrary and it seems like we can't predict or control the direction. And that may very well be true. It may be more true more of the time than we think, but it's just in our faces right now. So see if you can invite some of that trickster energy in and learn something there, and maybe even laugh a little bit. That's something that I need to practice more of. I can tell you that.
Do you want to just laugh right now for no reason, Chris?
Yeah, sure. Okay, help me out. Because I'm not.
You just did. That's perfect.
Yeah, I'm not much of a. See, I get so bottled up that even when I start.
Oh, hold it.
No,
You were
hold on.
you were about to say I'm not a much of. Don't even finish that thought.
I'm not well practiced.
Erase it. Giant eraser. Remember, we have a giant eraser. Erase it. Erase it.
What I was going to say is I'm not practiced enough at really just having a good belly laugh, because whenever I do, it's kind of like the sound gets trapped in my diaphragm and my head feels like it's going to blow up. So it's not a great combination. So laughter actually hurts, but I'm working on it. Okay. Anyway, that's what I had to say about the trickster for now.
That was really helpful, actually, to bring that trickster archetype into this mix, because it really resolved a lot of my angst inside me. You know, growing up in another country where we use tricksters a lot. We have multiple, not just foxes, but we also use raccoons for tricksters too. And then also we have this creature called kappa in Japan, kappa, and it's a trickster that lives inside the river and creeks and things like that, and tricks people to go inside the river. And he doesn't mean any harm, but he kind of like, you know, tries to pull people down, you know, and then it's not like it's a terrible thing, but he's definitely a trickster. And you have to remember that he's tricking you to do that. So I think that's a good archetype to kind of think about this month too. What's getting tricked? Who's tricking it? Where's this showing up? And to have a little bit of a laughter with it, because trickster is not trying to necessarily harm you in any way. It's trying to get you to think differently, change the course of things. It's trying to spin you around so you get a little bit different perspectives, right? So use the trickster archetype. I think that was really good, Chris. And, you know, I wanted to read Marilyn's comment as well, but I wanted to say one thing. What Chris was bringing up while he was working on a bathroom, which is almost finished, everyone. He has gutted the floor. He does everything, just so you know. He gutted the floor. We got our friend to come and do the plumbing this time to help us, but he tiled it already. He started grouting now, and it's looking beautiful. So we'll have to show you the picture before and after. Some of you will be like, oh my gosh, I remember green toilet and green sink and pink tiles.
I just want to say that, hold on, before you make it sound too amazing, it's taken me over a year to do this. And I also relied on the help of our best friend to do most of it. So I didn't do it single-handedly. True. Yeah.
But it's getting done. So it's awesome. But one of the things that I heard over the weekend, I was listening to this Japanese guy talk, and then he's kind of like one of those top 3 wealthiest man in Japan kind of a thing. He's created all kinds of companies, really successful, but really interesting to listen to. And he brought up this interesting comment. He said he was talking to the Hitachi. Hitachi is like the electronic company, which is like multi-billion-dollar company or so. The owner of the Hitachi guy, and he said to him, you know, I really don't know why I became so successful. But the Hitachi guy said, I have 3 reasons probably why I became so successful. It's because 1, I didn't go past high school. Okay. And I just want to give you a background. This other guy that I'm listening to, he only went to 9th grade. And after that, he started working since he was 16 years old. Okay. So the Hitachi guy only went to school till, high school. Okay. So the Hitachi guy is saying, probably because I'm successful because I only finished high school. Number 2, he says, I was sick all the time as a kid. That's probably why I'm so successful at thinking outside the box. How can I help other people? How can I help myself to feel better? Being sick was number 2. That's the successful reason, number 2. Number 3, he says, probably because I grew up so poor. That's why I'm so successful. He says, otherwise, I can't think of other reasons why I became so successful internationally. And I had to sit back, and I came in while Chris is grouting the tiles and he's all messy and covered in mud. I said, honey, gotta listen to this. I said, can you see how it just flips your thinking, right? So I'm sending this message to you, Sharon, particularly you, Sharon. Retirement does not need to mean financial difficulties. So get that equal signs out of it, first of all. Because you're retired, you're going to find interesting ways to create financial freedom in your life, okay? That is the reason why you get to create it. I want you to think that way, because I have a friend that constantly says to me, oh, I only graduated high school, and I didn't grow up with parents that, pushed me to go to college, and blah, 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 blah. And then I just want to say to you, I know you're here. I know you're listening to this. I love you. I love, love, love you. Okay. But listen to the Hitachi guy saying, that's because I didn't finish school, meaning I didn't finish school more than high school. So people didn't put more crap in your head, okay, that you have to sort it out. So just be really open to possibilities. You see how this is what Chris was talking about. It's like, stop and say, wait a minute, what I'm doing isn't quite right. But that's because I'm feeding that same narrative. So I tuned into my own self and I said, what is the narrative that keeps feeding me and keeping me small? Okay. And some of you know this. The biggest narrative that I played over and over and over was English is my second language. I'm going to make mistakes left and right. People don't, I was judged when I came to this country, to the United States, not speaking a word of English, and I didn't look Japanese. So people thought that I was stupid, okay, because I couldn't speak. And so I really struggled with that, because I came from the top of the class in Japan to taking English as a second language class where I'm learning furniture names and utensil names, guys. Okay. And I'm 16. So, I just really, that got me stuck in my mode, because I thought I never want to appear stupid. So this is why I didn't put myself out there for so long. And now, you know what, guys, I don't give a crap. Okay. I will make mistakes. I will forget to put uhs and does and s's after nouns. I don't care, because that's why I appeal to people, because English isn't my first language, because I get to bring in different languages and different way of thinking. That's why you are here. That's what I started telling myself. Okay. So over the weekend, I did the same thing again, because I teared up and I just started saying, wow, that feeling is still deeply in me. I said to myself, this is why people are listening to me, because I think differently and I speak differently, and I get to bring different energies into what we're talking about. So tap into that part of you. Okay. Come up with 3 reasons why you're successful. Sharon, that's because you're retired. That's why you're successful. Okay. All right. So Marilyn says, I started doing street cleanup. I love that, in my neighborhood, where the children walk to school and many people walk too, with the intention that everyone who saw me or felt me would be blessed and encouraged. Yes, I love that. I love that you didn't just visualize it and imaginal came in, but you actually put that to action. That's the important part, right? Because you can imagine all you want, but there's that Japanese, saying, right? That, imagination without action is a nightmare, right? We've got to have the action. Okay. If you're just imagining, then you're just daydreaming until you put the action piece into it. Do you want to read the other ones, Chris? And then we'll wrap up.
There's another, let's close on this one. Thank you for everyone that put comments. There's been a lot of commenting in the chat today of all kinds, and a lot of really good sharing from Penny, noticing the feeling of hairballs coming from nowhere in regard to
I'm with you. I'm with you for
some
sure.
of the other observations. So thank you for all of those. Those are all, you know, just very thoughtful. And the one that I think maybe takes us to the end for today nicely from where we started with, what are we imagining for the future world? And I'm going to share, before I read this one last comment that came from a mentor of mine, that he's actually an internationally known speaker and business leadership consultant, and he's written a lot of books. And I was sitting with him several years ago, and he said, I'm going to ask you a question. You don't have to answer it right now, but you do have to answer it at some point. And the question was, what do you uniquely offer the world of tomorrow? I'll say it again. What do you uniquely offer the world of tomorrow? That's the question that we're all being asked. And it's not a set answer. It's a dynamic answer. It's something that requires constant care and reflection to see. And like Masami said, it requires action to bring it into the world. So start from where you are right now. We've all heard that advice before. And really, really feel into who you are. That's a clue right there. But let me read this last comment from Erlene. She said, I imagined that I was living in an apartment complex where everyone is friendly and caring. So to be part of that, I started seeing where I could be of help and greeting those I have not met since I moved in here during COVID. And there have not been any social things for 1.5 years. At least I feel better. So you see here the power of imagination being partnered with action. And you know, so much of this is constantly where I'm learning, is our mindsets absolutely are like our imagination, because mindset holds the set of possibilities that we can see right now. Okay, that's how I understand mindset. It's the container that holds the current set of possibilities we can see. Imagination is what expands that set of possibilities so we can see more. So on that note, my challenge to myself and to everyone here and to everyone listening is to really see, how can you grow that container of possibility through your imagination and bring it into the world of tomorrow, starting right now.
Wow. Thank you, honey. Yeah, that touched me very much. Thank you so much. Big sigh, everyone. Let's take a breath in. Make sound out of your mouth. Do that 2 more times. In through the nose. One more. And shake up your extremities. So your toes, your feet, your ankles. Shake it up. Yeah. You can do this. We can do this, everyone. We come together to support one another in our imagination. So you're here to express who you are for the world of tomorrow. Andrew wrote it here. What do you uniquely offer the world of tomorrow? Thank you, Andrew, for writing that down for us. Thank you. And please join me tomorrow night live on John Burgos. If it's too late for you, it's recorded, so don't worry. Okay. And I will put the link right here too, and then on the YouTube channel as well. But if you haven't signed up, please do and show up and ask me questions. Okay. And we'll continue to move forward together. Okay. Holding hands. We love you. We love you. Bye.